We had a heck of a Game 7 in that Western Conference Finals, and now the NBA Finals are set. We're going to talk about where does OKC go from here? What do they need to learn from this season to build going forward? And we're also going to preview this Finals that Legler will be on the call for. All that and more on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who will be courtside calling the games for you here in the NBA Finals. How you doing, Legs?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Living the dream in San Antonio and, on the eve of calling my very first NBA Finals, man. I can't wait. I think the best word to sum it up is adrenaline. That's kind of what I'm feeling. It's like anytime I played, a game, big game or whatever it may be, like that feeling, like you just cannot wait, So it's going to be awesome, man. I'm honored, blessed to be in this spot, best seat in the house. And I think we are going to get an absolutely epic NBA Finals. I mean, if this doesn't get you going and get your juices flowing as a fan, and even a casual fan, like if you don't find like big time interest in watching this, I don't know what it would take, man, with these two storylines. And, the New York Knicks, 53 years waiting, that market, how much they love that team, the Garden, nothing quite like that. And then the San Antonio Spurs team with this incredibly unique talent and a young group around him. This is what it's all about, man. And unlike what we saw in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think we're actually going to get some very compelling games that are decided late. I'd be very surprised if that's not the case.
I think so too. Now, the NBA does not script the season, but if they were, Legs, I think they would have Victor Wembanyama and the New York Knicks. As you were saying, casual fans even will be into this. I think it's no question. I think this is an example of a finals that grabs everyone's attention in the sports world. And I kind of expect that kind of excitement around this series.
No, I totally agree. And look, you look around the league and you go, okay, what would have like generated a bigger storyline? Clearly, you got some of the older superstars, iconic players of their generation are still in the league. Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, like guys like that. If somehow those teams were able to make that kind of a run, I think maybe that would compare to this. But for the most part, I mean, you talk about, first of all, a storied franchise in the Spurs. Been down really since the Duncan era ended. And then Kawhi left and trying to find that next magic. And they have found it. And it's not just Victor Wembanyama. It's you didn't whiff on these picks. Yep. All of these picks, like you hit out of the park. Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, the role players, some of which were already there before this started. The guys like Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson. You added Julian Champagnie to the mix. You go out and get a Luke Cornett. Like all of these guys, a vet like Harrison Barnes, like you created this incredible team. I love Mitch Johnson as a coach, his communication ability, his messaging, the way he carries himself. He can get into guys when they need that. He can also pat you on the back. I just like his style. So that combined with the Knicks, are you kidding me? Like, anytime you get one of these major markets that have been starving for a championship, like the reaction to it, if they're able to break through, just go back to what Philadelphia looked like when they won their first Super Bowl, when the Eagles won that Super Bowl. And ended that. Like there's nothing quite compares to those massive markets that love their sports teams and they go through a long drought. So the Knicks now having a team worthy of this stage, it just sets it up to be, like I said, epic. I think that's the best word to use, and I just really hope we get some great finishes in these games in the fourth quarter, and I think we will.
You were mentioning the old stars like LeBron and Kevin Durant. Those guys obviously superstars, grabbed everybody's attention. But I kind of feel like Victor Wembanyama has surpassed all of them for right now. I'm not saying he's reached the height of higher than their heights, but just in terms of intrigue, because there's a spectacle factor of him. He's just so tall, he's so big. But I feel like his popularity is sky high. We've seen these great players come through over the last 10 years, including Shea, Jokic, Luka even. I feel like Wemby has just, he brings out a level of intrigue in the casual and common fan that I think is even higher than those guys because of his height and his unique skill set and everything else. But there's just something to him that's very magnetic, I think, to the casual fan right now. And that's why you're right, man. LeBron James in the finals, Lakers in the finals, all that stuff would have been big storylines, big money for the NBA. But I think Wemby arriving this early is as high as any of these in terms of storylines. I think I think it's going to elevate the league because of how many people are just interested to watch what this guy does.
Yeah, and I think, look, I think a lot of people have been watching him on this run and watching him mature throughout this season. He's such an intelligent guy, and he has such introspect when he speaks. But he also, I thought, started to toward the tail end here. He's taken a little bit more of almost a tone of like not really fully embracing the media, maybe a little bit distrust there for whatever reason. Maybe that's the next thing for him, where you don't have to be this guy that's sucking up to the media at all. But I felt like as the playoffs have gone on, it's been a little bit more guarded and a little bit more reserved in his approach to the media. So I'm curious to see. So today actually is the first time we're going to get to interview him. We're going over to the arena today. We're going to talk to Victor Wembanyama, because during the season we did a number of Spurs games, and it's really up to the team who they make available to you. And he didn't ever want to do those. We talked throughout the year, we talked to Stephon Castle. We talked to Keldon Johnson. I think we got Devin Vassell one time. But we've never spoken to Victor Wembanyama. And we're going to get a chance to do that today, because the league is more involved now at this time of the year. And like for the NBA finals, so they kind of, they're going to control that. You have to be able to talk to these guys. So I'm really curious there to talk to him and because everything he says is like so mature, and his answers are so on point and matter of fact and business-like about what he's about. I love that about him. But there's also been, I think, a tone that's kind of arisen with him where he's not completely receptive of all of this. And I don't know why. Maybe he has a reason. Maybe it's not at all. Maybe it's just him dialed in on this time of the year and what he wants to accomplish. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll get a better feel for that today when we get a chance to sit down and talk with him, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's the discovery phase right now of a new superstar, new face of the league, and he has emerged and so far is fulfilling it really nicely. Let's go back, though, to the game 7, because I want to talk about the Thunder and what they do here. And I have a couple takes for you. The game is a couple days stale, so we're not going to do a game breakdown like we typically would on this show. But I do want to give some takes. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button and that you are subscribed. We're back on Thursday. We're talking about what happens in game 1. So we'll be previewing it today. We'll be recapping on Thursday. But my first takeaway from the series, Wemby was the best player in the series. And I would add, it wasn't close. I think when you talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the 2-time MVP, 1 MVP this year, Wemby was head and shoulders, literally and figuratively, above everyone else, including Shai, in terms of impact in the series. And I think it was very obvious as you watch the games.
I agree with that. I don't think there's anything denying it. And I think the thing that, look, Shai is an incredible offensive talent. I think that the thing that always separates him, and the thing you go to first, at least I know I do when I'm describing his game and talking about his game, it's the efficiency with which he does it.
Yep.
Guys that operate the way he does in a sort of a off the dribble, one-on-one type of environment, which is where he excels, and take a lot of contested jump shots, do not shoot 55% from the field. Guys just don't do that because the degree of difficulty is so high. The amount of energy you expend to take shots like that is so high. Not a lot of, almost none, like catch and shoot situations, which don't require as much energy. He doesn't get a whole lot, honestly, out in transition where he can get to the rim pretty easily. It's a lot of operating against the very best defender on the floor. Initially, defense is loaded up to your side of the floor. Everything they can do to get the ball out of your hands. And you're taking 10, 12, 15 contested jump shots a night. You don't shoot 55%. That's what he did this season. And he's been so efficient throughout his career. So that was taken away. So for me, and by a large degree, I mean, he shot 40% in the series.
Yeah.
So when you limit a guy to that extent and that far below the standard he has set for himself and what differentiates him as this scoring type of player in that area of the floor, yes, right off the bat you go, wow, and look, and that's a team defensive effort. Obviously, they've got some guys that can guard him good initially, but that's a team defense, an elite team defense, great rim protection behind those guys, all of that stuff. But right there, when you just start right there, you talk about 55% in the regular season, 40% in this series. That to me, right off the bat, you're like, he is so far below his normal standard that now Victor Wembanyama just has to be close to his own standard, and he's going to be the best player in the series by default. I think that's what he was. And he wasn't sensational in every game, but he was pretty damn good in every game and spectacular in some, and really, really impactful when they had to have him on both ends of the floor. So I agree with that statement. I think he was, by a pretty wide degree, I think, the best player in this series. Now, give Shea credit in Game 7. He was incredible in Game 7. But the number of shots he hit, how difficult those shots were just to keep them like within arm's distance of the Spurs in that game was incredible that he found that in a Game 7 when he had struggled the way that he had. But your statement stands on its own merit. Victor Wembanyama was the best player in the series.
I think Wemby might have the highest floor game to game of any player because his defensive impact is there every single night. And there were games in the series where his defense wasn't as high. It was below average, I would say, for him, to his own standard, below his own standard. But even that, it's still higher than almost every other player because he just, his length and his ability to affect every play. It really was the story of the series, was how big of an impact he had on defense. But the offensive part is the inconsistent part where you can tell he's still figuring things out. But what I thought was special about Game 7 was the pressure he put on the rim as a role guy. He could play the pick and pop game. He could play the open court, trying to make moves off of the dribble and do different things. We saw him duck in and go down to the post. I thought in Game 7, it was just his gravity rolling hard to the rim, almost like a traditional center, lob threat center. But when you're 7'5" with that vertical spacing that he provides, that was enough to open up. Game 7s are going to be ugly. Offense is going to be hard to come by. The Spurs got great shots, even in the clutch, I thought, in large part because of the pressure he puts on the rim and how when it's late in games and you don't want to give up any easy buckets, there's nothing easier than a lob to a 7'5" guy right at the rim. So the defense is collapsing, and it gives you an opportunity to generate clean looks for your role players, and they stepped up and knocked them down.
Well, I think the greatest thing about what they did in Game 7 is, despite his greatness throughout the series, that Game 7 was all about their team.
Yep.
The balance and depth of their team, the repeated shots that they made. It felt like Oklahoma City was just right there below the surface. And if they could just get 3 stops in a row, they were going to have a chance to get it tied, take the lead. And who knows what the Spurs would feel in that moment if they go down a bucket there in the fourth quarter in Oklahoma City with what that crowd, what that environment is like. And Oklahoma City's knowledge of how to close out teams when they get them in that situation. And they couldn't get those stops strung together because of the shot making of the guys around Wemby. It was really blowing my mind. It wasn't like one guy. It was across the board. Guys stepped up and made enormous shots, whether it was Champagny, Vassell, Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, all of those guys.
Keldon Johnson, the biggest ones.
Yeah, Keldon Johnson. The corner threes, and he had struggled, and he steps up and knocks down the 2 biggest shots of the night for him.
It started up the runoff. Those 2 shots were the ones that kind of gave the Spurs momentum at the moment when momentum mattered the most.
Completely agree with you. And so I think if you really wanted to submit a tape, right, and make your best case for why it's about the Spurs team and why they could become NBA champions, it's that game.
I agree.
Because of what was at stake, the pressure involved. You're going to get your best punch from the Thunder, defending champions in their own building. And it wasn't all about Victor Wembanyama went for 47. And there's nothing you could do with this 7'5" guy that was making every shot in the world. It wasn't about that at all. He had 22 and 7 in the game. A great night for anybody in a Game 7 in the conference finals. It was about the totality of the team and the depth and both ends of the floor, what they were doing defensively as well. So I thought that, to me, was a great summation for what the Spurs have become as a team and why they're now prepared for this stage in the NBA Finals.
It's a great take, and it really was my second takeaway, which was that the Spurs role players outplayed OKC's role players in the clutch, and that was the story of the series ultimately, since that's what it came down to. And we mentioned the Keldon Johnson threes and some of the other plays. I think there's 2 plays that defined Game 7. One was Keldon Johnson's 2 threes in the fourth quarter to kind of get the run started. That defined it because it gave momentum, and momentum mattered so much at that moment. And then it was Luke Cornett's block at the rim.
Man.
And this is how you win championships, man. This is how you win big game sevens, is you just get contributions where you don't expect them. But Luke Kornet, like if you just go through all the Spurs players that played in the fourth, they all contributed in one way or another. And Luke Kornet getting a block on Hartenstein, that was, if Hartenstein converts that, I feel like it's almost like, all right, momentum resets. Now let's just play the last, 6-7 minutes. He gets that block, and it just propelled the Spurs. It was such a big play, and to get it from the most unlikely place, or at least in my opinion, an unlikely place to me, was a series-defining play.
Well, not a lot of guys are going to play 6 minutes in a game 7 and have one of the biggest plays of the game. That's just not typically played 6 minutes. He had 2 points, 4 rebounds, which is elite.
That's a lot
for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
But the block, and you're right, man. Like, first of all, if Hartenstein just converts it, you're like, okay, but there's a good possibility Kornet gets there a half second late, and that's a three-point play opportunity. And now it could feel so different. So, the risk that he took to get there, to make a clean play on the ball, like one of those rare blocks at the rim where like not one person is like, that's a foul. Like nobody, not even the most diehard Thunder fans were yelling that, because it was that clean. And that replay, that great slow motion replay, like from right at rim level as he's coming in, it just was, 6 minutes, and you have one of the most important plays in the entire game. And they only played really 7 guys in this game because Kornet got 6 minutes. They played a couple minutes. Carter Bryant, Harrison Barnes barely played. It was really just Keldon Johnson and Dylan Harper. And the starters, they were going to run as many minutes as they had to win this game. Yeah. So their depth typically is on greater display than it was in that game. But the guys outside of Victor Wembanyama and the shots they had to make, and they made 17 threes in this game, 40% from the three-point line. In a game this important, when you're tired and gassed and the adrenaline takes your wind a little bit and the pressure of the moment, they were plus 15 from the three-point line in an 8-point win. It's enormous the way those guys stepped up and knocked down those shots. And so they earned it, man. They earned it. They had to go into, one of, if not the most hostile road environment in the NBA, and they had to come away in a game 7, and they needed everybody that played on their team significant minutes to contribute, even some guys that barely saw the floor to contribute, like Luke Kornet.
Well, that's the other thing that shots like Keldon Johnson's and blocks like Luke Kornet's do, is when you're in that road, you don't want that crowd to have a moment that really gets going and propels them. And those 2 plays took the air out of the building in a big way. My third one, the Spurs grew up a lot in this series, and I would really extend that to say this entire playoffs. But when it's true, young teams don't win in the NBA. You kind of have to go through your steps, and you go through the playoffs. You have to learn some lessons. I feel like the Spurs learned their lessons in this playoff run and grew like on the fly. They didn't have to go through a heartbreak in an offseason to get to where they got so far. They were able to grow up. And I think Dylan Harper, Castle, Carter Bryant, even Wembanyama, Vassell, I think they are all meaningfully better players right now than they were 2 months ago when we started game 1 of round 1. We have watched them grow up in real time. Dylan Harper going at Scoot Henderson in that first round. That was like a growing up moment. They've been tested and they've been pushed, and I just look at this Spurs team and say it's been impressive, but also interesting watching them just mature game by game into where the Knicks, unfortunately, are getting the best version we've ever seen of this group of the Spurs.
And I'll quickly, before I answer that, I'll immediately, because you finished with that sentence, I'm going to say, and the Spurs are getting the best version of the New York Knicks.
Yeah, that's true. Well. That's no question. Right? Yes.
I mean, since the day that Jalen Brunson arrived in New York, this is the best version of the New York Knicks that he's been a part of and that they have been all season. So that's why that's why I'm so excited about this, because both of them are coming in with that kind of momentum, feeling that way about themselves, having matured, grown up, grown together, figured things out. If you're the Knicks, like you had a veteran team, guys been around, but they had to figure out how to make that the best version of what they could be, particularly offensively. And they've done it. For the Spurs, you're right, it's different. It's young guys growing up right before our eyes. And I think what it points to is the guys that they have drafted, the guys that they've cultivated, there is a business-like seriousness about them that is very rare for players that young. Yeah. Guys can come into the league and have all the physical tools and at times show the maturity, but it's almost like to be understood if at other times, maybe the focus isn't there on a given night. And it's a little bit more about themselves at times, because that's kind of what 19, 20, 21-year-olds typically tend to do and be. And it's maybe by the time you get to like 23, 24, 25, you start to come into that feeling your own, where you've already gotten some of that stuff out of the way. You've grown up as a man. A lot of times you get into that age, you have your first child. It changes your perspective on things. Everything starts to come together. You've already probably gotten your second contract at that point, so the money's taken care of, and it becomes about winning. These guys are starting out that way.
Yep.
And that is what is incredibly, incredibly rare. And that's what they've captured. And that's, to me, with the most respect I have for them, particularly when I look at Castle, Harper, two guards this early in their careers that, number one, play both ends of the floor with equal commitment. It matters to them. The demeanor with which they play, it's all business. And they're tough. They're tough guys. They're tough mentally because they can make big shots. They're tough physically. They have the strength and the athletic ability to make a huge difference in this league. So I totally agree with you. Like, watching them, and you knew they kind of were cut out of that mold at the beginning of the year. But to watch that evolution throughout the season and turn into this, where you have this young group just come to believe in themselves in the moment and take this why not now mentality, has been a lot of fun.
So let's move over to the Thunder now. And yes, after the break, we are going to get into the Knicks and talk about this upcoming series. But I just want to put a bow on this Western Conference Finals because it's big. It kind of will tell us a lot about going forward in the Western Conference. But if we move to OKC, my first takeaway is that Chet Holmgren got exposed. And I say that not to, like, oh, there was a weakness to him or this or that. But he had a horrible Game 7. He had a horrible series. And Chet, if you're OKC, you're building and you see San Antonio coming and you're thinking, we have a guy that more or less matches up. Maybe their guy's better, but matches up and can make an impact. That was erased to the degree that I thought I don't like overstating this, Legs, because people often talk about chokers and stepping up or this or that. So when I say this, I'm saying it carefully. But Chet Holmgren was shook in that series and in that Game 7. And that is something now that the Thunder are going to have to assess as they go to their offseason, that a max contract guy who they count on to be a key figure in their matchup with their rival was eliminated in a key game. Eliminated because there was a dunk. Wemby got him with a poster dunk early, and he did not shoot the ball after that. That was the first quarter. He didn't shoot the ball. He caught the ball a couple times and looked at the rim. So I think Chet got a little bit shaken, not a little bit, a lot of it shaken, to the degree that now I don't know what you think the Thunder have to think about him going forward, especially in this matchup.
So, all right, I love the way you put it. I think that's the best way to describe it, because as well as I do, in this industry, people will take this too far. They'll get too carried away. They'll say very disrespectful things about Chet Holmgren. They'll just go to a place that it's hard to even walk it back at any point. I love what you said, because there is no denying he was shook. He was rattled. It affected the way he was processing the game. And it completely took away his aggressiveness. He started to look like a guy that was afraid of failure.
Yep.
And when you start to play that way as a professional athlete, that's exactly what it's going to look like. You don't take chances anymore. You'd rather play it safe and disappear than to try and have it not work out. Drive at Wemby and have him block your shot. Try to get there in time to stop Wemby at the rim and he get dunked on again. It's better not to try than to have that happen again. That's exactly what he looked like. And I'm sitting there watching this. You got to remember something. Chet Holmgren hit a basket with 10:41 left in the first quarter. It was the first basket for the Thunder. Made it 4-2. He took one more shot in the game. And so I was thinking about
he had chances.
I always reference the game, and I don't remember the year now. It's been so long, but that James Harden played in the I think it was conference finals against San Antonio, when he was the leading scorer, MVP of the league, all that, and they played the Spurs in a Game 6. And remember the famous James Harden game when he only took like 2 or 3 shots in the first half. They were down 25. And no one could figure out what was going on. I always thought that was one of the biggest disappearing acts I've ever seen. And then I saw this game, and here's the only thing I'll still say that's not quite on that level. Here's why. If you're the Thunder, you could potentially win a game if Chet Holmgren is like really far below average. Like even this game, you could potentially still win that game. Like for Houston at that time, they couldn't win if James Harden was going to play that way. Like that was going to be impossible. So I don't think it's necessarily on that level because of the star power. You're talking about one of the best players in the league at that time, leading scorer doing that. So this is not quite that, but it was one of the biggest, most head-scratching performances I've ever seen. He was a third-team all-league player. Deservedly so, by the way. I'm not going to sit here now and walk that back.
Yeah, regular season.
That's based on the regular season, man. It's based on the regular season. That team won 64 games. That team, he's both ends of the floor. He was a very good offensive player for them. He's an elite defender. So he deserved to make third-team All-NBA. But to see an all-league player lose his confidence and his willingness to try to impact the game to that extent, it's very few times in my entire playing or broadcasting career have I seen a guy disappear to that extent where he had no bearing on the game whatsoever and ended up to the point where actually was killing them because what are you going to do? Like was Dagnall going to really yank him off the floor? You're not going to do that. So by basically having to play an all-league player, and he was in this place where he was disappeared, gone from the game, you're out there playing with like four guys.
Yeah.
Offensively against an elite defensive team. So it crippled them. If he has a decent game, I don't know if they win the game, but they're going to be right there. It's going to be right there, potentially winnable. So I agree with you, man. And here's my question for you. He'll recover. He's young enough. He can recover from this. But here's the one thing he's going to face now going forward. This is what he's created for himself. The narrative is going to resurface every time he's quiet. That's
right.
what he's created for himself. So can he erase it? Of course. Thunder are going to be right back in the mix again next year. They're going to be a contender next year. Does he have great playoff performances? He played well in the Game 7 of the Finals a year ago. So can he do that again? Yes. The problem is now he's opened the door to, if this does start to happen in the future, boom, we're back in this place. That's what he's opened for himself. And look, and that's different, by the way, than going 2 for 17. 2 for 17 is, man, he had a rough night. Maybe he was affected by the nerves a little bit, but he was still playing the same way. And you can live with that as a fan, guys that do what we do for a living and analyzing this stuff. You can't live with rejecting the moment, which is what he did. He didn't want any part of the moment. That is now what he's created for himself. He can recover. He's young enough. He's talented enough. But he's now opened the door for massive scrutiny every time he has a game where he doesn't perform and it looks like he's lost confidence or he's quiet in a playoff game or a big spot.
Yeah, I agree, man. And especially in this series against Victor Wembanyama, it's just going to hang over his head. And to your point, the moment he trips up, everyone's going to say, there it is. Here it comes. We're seeing it. And that's a lot to overcome. We got to take a break, Legs. I could keep talking about this series probably for an entire show, but we got to get to the main event, and that is the NBA Finals. So we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about the New York Knicks, who, to your point, have been just as impressive if we just look at the playoffs. In fact, they've been more impressive. We're going to talk about them on the other side. Quince Spring Reset, upgrade your everyday essentials. Fewer pieces, better materials. It's that time to get your summer closet going. They have elevated fabrics, fits that are thoughtful, pricing that actually makes sense, and so many things to choose from. I'm telling you, go on there, you think, okay, maybe there's going to be a couple dozen items for me to look at. No, hundreds of items. Quince makes high-quality, everyday essentials using premium materials like 100% European linen, and their insanely soft flow-knit activewear fabric. Their men's linen pants and shirts are lightweight, breathable, and comfortable. Basically, the perfect layer for spring. The pants strike the right balance between laid back and refined, so you look put together without trying too hard. I'm telling you, they have all kinds of great stuff on there. You have to go to quince.com and check out the selection because it really will blow your mind. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/allNBA for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com, that's QUINCE.com/allNBA for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/allNBA. I also want to tell you guys about Kalshi. The finals are here. It's the most electric time in basketball, and on Kalshi you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and of course, where we are now, the NBA finals. Let me show you guys real quick what's going on. Right now, it's about 2-1. San Antonio is trending at 63% odds to win the finals. New York at 37%. Here's a true story. Going into the conference finals, I bought a position on the San Antonio Spurs. In game 2, I bought out of my position when Dylan Harper got hurt because I was worried he was going to be out for the whole series. You didn't know at that time what the injury was. Ended up making money even though I bought out of my position. That's what's really cool about Kalshi is you can buy in and out. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position for a limited time. Download the Kalshi app and use code ALLNBA to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. Make sure you're subscribed so you get Tim Legler's thoughts after every single game. We will be back on Thursday. We adjusted our schedule a little bit this week to fit the NBA Finals. But let's go to the main event now. The NBA Finals are set, and I want to talk about key battlegrounds. And I don't know how you feel. I feel like the key battleground for me is going to be Karl-Anthony Towns' ability to impact Victor Wembanyama. Because Wemby is going to be best roaming the paint. We've seen this. He has not really yet faced a center that can stretch him out to the three-point line and hit shots. He's really good at guys that can drive and, you kick it out to him and now he has to guard and sit down. He can do that. But if you just kick it, quick three-point shot, he is going to have to step out of the paint. And I think the Knicks and Karl-Anthony Towns might represent a new challenge, one we have not seen him face in a playoffs, which is how do you protect the paint and keep Karl-Anthony Towns from shooting?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a little bit different because this isn't just a guy that's capable of making an outside shot. Like there are
Chet,
teams that
every now and then.
Exactly. It's a great example. Even you go back, whatever series, Donovan Clingan in the first round, like he's capable of going out there and making a shot or two. That's not what we're talking about with Karl-Anthony Towns. He's very comfortable being out there, high percentage shooter from out there. And he also, by the way, and this is a big part of, I think, Karl-Anthony Towns' mentality in this series has to be this, because I do think Victor Wembanyama's natural inclination, and it should be, is going to be obviously to protect on penetration. The Knicks are number 1 amongst all playoff teams in points in the paint. It's going to be a major storyline in this series. They attack. They attack off the drive. They attack off the closeout. They get you in transition, which contributes to that number. Victor Wembanyama's natural inclination is going to be to get back there and roam and cover ground and protect, and there's going to be kickouts, and Karl-Anthony Towns is going to get some looks. But here's the other component to that, where this could play in. Victor Wembanyama then, if he hits a couple, Victor Wembanyama is going to have to probably stay a little closer, and his closeout is going to be pretty hard, and he is 7'5". I don't care how agile you are. You're still 7'5", man, and that's a lot of moving parts. To be sprinting out with your hand in the air against this 7-foot guy that's going to shoot threes at a high rate, and then being able to reverse direction without fouling him when Karl-Anthony Towns puts it down on those hard straight line drives, because he's going to do that 6 times a game. And he goes either hand as well. So it's not even like he's going to go right so you can run out on his right hand and force left. He likes going left to finish. He puts his head down. He barrels down the lane. He puts his shoulder into you, and he draws fouls. Now, he's also, as we know, prone to picking up cheap fouls on the other end of the floor.
Big story, by the way.
No doubt. I'm just talking about this context.
Yeah.
This is going to be a challenge for Victor Wembanyama. How do you do both? And something's going to be, he goes to help on the kickouts. There's going to be a rotation where now Wembanyama ends up in a different place. And actually, Wembanyama is going to have a number of possessions where he's going to be guarding Josh Hart initially. We've seen teams do it repeatedly. Put an elite defender on Josh Hart, You're kind of going to have to dare him and live with it. You saw what happened to Cleveland. He had 5 in one game in that series. But for the most part, amongst those starters, that's still a shot you probably want to live with, where he guards Hart, so he doesn't have to recover back out to Karl-Anthony Towns. His closeout's going to be back to Josh Hart. And you live with a couple early, and then you adjust accordingly. So he's not just going to be on Karl-Anthony Towns. I think Josh Hart's going to be a big matchup for him as well. But I want to see how Karl-Anthony Towns attacks Wemby on those drives. And can he draw fouls, or is Wemby good enough to use his length, continue to backpedal, just put his arm up and not foul him? That, to me, is going to be a big part of this series because they need to get Victor Wembanyama off the court. The Knicks need him off the floor to plus-minus splits. And the difference in their team when he's on the bench is incredible. So that's going to be a big part of this series. Let's see if Karl-Anthony Towns can pull that off.
You mentioned the foul trouble for Cat. He did have 13 fouls in 3 games versus the Spurs, so that was an issue in this matchup when they played each other. But your point about Wemby, for as great as he is defensively, I actually think it is a weakness of his, which is closing out at the three-point line hard. Not just, he's really good at the soft closeout, put a hand up, and it's a contested three. But if you're worried about the guy actually making them and he has to fully commit to taking away the shot, he actually can be blown by. And to your point, this is what Cat's great at. He has a very quick shot. He barely jumps, so he gets it out of his hands quickly, so you're going to have to close hard. And then he's got a good fake and then just kind of head down. It's almost clunky because he stomps his way to the basket, but it's effective. He gets a straight line there. And I think Wemby actually struggles with this. Close out and still recover and keep the guy in front of you. And so I am curious to see if that becomes a factor and what the Spurs do, if it is a factor, how to mitigate that. My second big detail for the series, though, Legs, is the Spurs guards bullied Oklahoma City and were not bullied by Oklahoma City's guards. Maybe it's better to say they were not bullied by them because the Thunder guards, they're super fast. They can guard. But San Antonio had a size advantage. They're not going to have a size advantage over OG Anunoby, Hart, Mikal Bridges. And so I'm very curious to see if Castle and Harper are as effective when they're going up and are not able to bully their way to the rim.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And you're right. That's differentiating the two teams. Oklahoma City, San Antonio, both elite defensively, different ways. OKC, ton of guys that are incredible laterally and their ability to rake with their hands on the perimeter, but they're not necessarily the biggest, strongest guys. If you can get an angle on them, you can play through them. A lot more difficult to do that against the Knicks perimeter defenders and even the guys that you're throwing at Jalen Brunson. So you look at the initial defense on Shea, right? Those guys are big. They're certainly quick enough laterally, but it's like their strength. And in the playoffs, you're allowing a little bit more contact on the perimeter so that you can manipulate guys a little bit better, keep them in front with your strength. Guys like Castle, guys like Dylan Harper, Vassell falls in that category, even Champagnie. These guys are bigger guards. They're stronger, and they're good enough laterally. And here's where it's a little bit different what they're going to throw at Brunson and the effect on him.
Yeah. When
your Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, because I do think he got worn down in these games. And when you're taking that many tough shots off the dribble, and what he wasn't getting was the quick hitters, he's so used to coming up, one quick brush screen, and boom, there he goes. He's downhill or he's shooting a pull-up jumper or a quick ISO, and there he goes. And he gets into his first action, and it's a shot. That wasn't happening against the Spurs. They weren't giving up the quick stuff, so now he'd give it up, get it back at 35 feet, 6 seconds on the shot clock. Now go. That is exhausting to play that way. Jalen Brunson, he's a grounded player. He's not using verticality to get off the floor. It's balance and strength and using your own leverage against you with his IQ and his touch. So I don't think he's going to wear down the way that Shea did with this initial physical defensive presence that's in front of him, even though he's several inches smaller than Shea. I don't think it's going to affect him as much in terms of the physical wear and tear over the course of the game so that he's fresher when he needs to be in the fourth quarter. I think that's going to be a factor that works in the Knicks' favor. Yes, it's an elite defensive team. It's the same guys that just guarded Shea. But I don't know that the wear and tear on Jalen Brunson will be as dramatic, and he's got much better balance amongst his starters to help him out and make the Spurs pay because all of those guys are in rhythm at the same time, different than what the Thunder were able to throw at the Spurs.
And I think the off ball, this is where the Knicks have really developed these other identities, is they don't need to just give it to him and clear out. They can run him off these screens, and I'm curious to see what impact that has on the Spurs defenders. First of all, on who you put on him. Because obviously I think you're going to want Castle to guard him in some matchups because he's got the size and can do a lot of things. We saw what he did against Shea. But if you're running off of screens, is it best to have him on Brunson early? Are you going to end up switching anyway as he comes off of a double pin down? We're gonna have to wait and see and see how that affects what the Spurs are able to do defensively. And then on the other end, the Spurs defenders are so strong. They can absorb a lot of these, and they're quick too, so they can absorb a lot of your fast but shorter players. OG Anunoby is huge. I'm curious to see if he is able to just kind of bully ball his way to the basket and have an impact on the guys that they put on him to be defended. So I think the size part of here is interesting because the Spurs have kind of won defensively with an overwhelming force that I'm not sure they're going to have that against the Knicks just physically.
No, and I agree with you. But these are two teams physically capable of looking each other in the eye in terms of just moving you around and plowing through contact and all of that. They look similar in that regard. So, listen, a part of every game in basketball in general, because of the subjectivity of on a given night, like what you're allowing from an officiating crew, like that's gonna play a role in this. And all you ever want for, like, I'm good either way as an analyst. I mean, I like the physicality of the game. It's kind of what I was used to in the era I played in. So I'm cool either way. If you want to call it tight, I'm okay with that. If you want to let these guys go, I'm good with that. The only thing, it has to be obviously consistent on both ends of the floor for both teams. And, if you're going to call illegal screens, then you're going to have to set the tone early, like what you're going to call. Don't allow a lot of moving screens, and then you're going to hit us with one in the third quarter. That all of a sudden out of nowhere is an illegal screen. It looked just like the other 52 we just watched. So you want consistency. I'm confident this is the best of the best that we're going to have in this series. The officiating crews are going to be able to do that. But I think that it would be better served for both teams. Let them play through some of this stuff because they're equipped to do it. They can play through the contact because they've got the size and the physical strength to be able to do that. Look, the Knicks had great success against the Spurs in terms of running their offense against the Spurs. They averaged 128 points a game in the two games. And Victor Wembanyama played both games. So they have, and this was before they hit their peak as an offensive team, which is what they're in right now. So I'm really curious to see like what looks different now in terms of the Spurs' ability to slow this machine down, because that's what they've become. They're a machine. There's no other way to describe it. 53% shooting amongst their starters. This deep into the postseason, the only time it's ever happened to a higher degree was 3 times in the 80s, and it was all the Lakers with Kareem and Magic and Worthy and those guys attacking the paint all the time. The Knicks are shooting 53% amongst their starters in the postseason. It's unheard of. That's the kind of rhythm that they have, the kind of balance that they have. And so the fact that they had success against them in the regular season should give them confidence.
Yeah.
But even that wasn't close to what they're playing like now offensively.
I agree completely. I think this series is going to be a great one. And I think that this matchup is completely different than what the Spurs. I mean, this is what's so interesting about the playoffs is a team can look dominant, in certain matchups. And then you get into a completely different one and you're like, yeah, all things are, it's not that the team wasn't good. It's that they have a new challenge. And I just think that this Knicks team is such a new challenge for the Spurs, and they're good. And they're playing at this super high level at the moment that you look at it and say, I think this series is very, very close to a toss-up. And I think a lot of people are coming around to that, Legs. I think 2 rounds ago, people kind of felt like collision course, OKC, San Antonio. But as it's played out, I think the Knicks, you look at this and say, absolutely they can win. Another thing about Brunson is his pull-up three-point shooting. And this is different than Shea. Shea has added a lot of the step-back three, especially late in the games. He's kind of added that to this to be a part of his closing repertoire. But that is Brunson. He's very comfortable doing that at any point. And I am curious if his three-point shooting, especially coming off of a handoff, coming off of a pin down, coming off of a pick and roll, if that three-point shooting actually changes some of the geometry, both for Wemby having to step out more and maybe even on-ball defenders having to chase differently than they were against Shea. So I think Brunson's three-point shooting is also a huge factor in the series.
Not only that, they're a three-point shooter in general as a team. Like I mentioned earlier, they're number one in the NBA amongst postseason teams, 53 points a night in the paint. They're not going to get to that number in this series. They're just not. Number one, they haven't faced a perimeter shell defensively with this level of individual defenders in the 3 rounds they've already played. And they certainly haven't faced anything like Victor Wembanyama on the backside. So they're not getting to that number. So that offense has to be made up somewhere, and it's going to come from 3-point shooting. Now, ironically, Jalen Brunson as great as he's been in the postseason. And actually overall, 3-point shooting down from the regular season for the playoffs. But he shot 44% from the three against the Sixers, 38% against Atlanta, both respectable, 44 even more than respectable. He was 4-for-22 against Cleveland. I don't know why, because there was so much less pressure taking those shots in that series other than the first game. And he hit the one he had to make in that game when they made that big comeback. Most of those were 2-point shots. He did have the one step back three. But so I don't know why, like the rest of the series, he just wasn't making 3-point shots for whatever reason. So, and now there's 9-day layoff in addition to that. So I don't know exactly what that 3-point shooting is going to look like, but I'm telling you, you're 100% on point. That shot is going to have to be, I think, a high volume for him, higher anyway. And I think their team overall, they're number one in percentage in the postseason amongst playoff teams, 40%. But the volume wasn't particularly high. It's going to be higher in this series. I guarantee you. The other thing they've been able to do is run on teams.
Yes, this is big. This is on my list.
Can get loose with the ball, man. And so that's what I think that's got to be there. There's 17 points a night in transition. It's got to be around that. That can't drop off. And San Antonio is elite at recovering. But I think the Knicks, that's got to be a part of their game plan. So those are the kind of things I'm looking at here early. Are they turning them over and getting points out of it? Open floor, 3-point shooting volume has to go up. Percentages have to stay. Maybe not 40%, but you can't drop off to 29% because the volume's going up. That's a big part of this series because you just cannot get to the rim the same way you can against their previous three opponents.
And even the thing about the Knicks is it's not just fast break, like, oh, they got 30 fast break points tonight. It's that they're able to turn you over, get up the court quickly and into their spots, and create cross matches, mismatches. And when you're starting with 20 seconds left on the clock and you've already created switches that you want, your odds of scoring go way up. And I think that's especially true in this series when we talk about the physicality advantage that may be in the Knicks' favor, something the Spurs rarely face, a team that's physically advantaged over them, that those early cross matches can create real issues for them. And so I think that the running is a huge part. But just to go back to the shooting, SGA against the Spurs this season. This comes from Atticus, all NBA stats and research. In 11 games this season, SGA shot 48% effective field goal percentage on pull-up jumpers. Brunson shot 62.5%. Now, it was lower volume, but it does just show that Brunson was comfortable against the Spurs with his pull-up jumper in a way that Shea was not all year, at least in the regular season, and we'll have to see if that trend continues, because if it does, that includes playoffs and regular season, by the way. Here's the last big one, and then I'll ask you what other things you have as key battlegrounds. But I actually think Wemby's offense is going to be more important this series. It was important last round as well, but I think he might have to score and create scoring opportunity, not just finish, but create them at a level that is going to be pretty high. And I think that the Knicks are going to be ready for it. They have physicality. They have a lot of different guys they can throw at him. OG, Mitchell Robinson, Cat. They have different types of looks they can give him. I think Wemby is going to have to generate individual and have brilliant individual offensive games in the series for the Spurs to win.
I think it's a great point. I agree with you. And this is good. Look, the Thunder represented a great challenge, and they're a great defensive team, and it's a different type of defense they're going to see here. This Knicks team is also playing an elite level, and part of it is because their offense has been so good that they've got so many more like half-court defensive sets. And that's when you start possessions matched up the way you want to. You're able to push the ball where you want to initially so you can execute the game plan. When you're missing and you're scrambling back, you get cross matches, you're never quite set up to execute what you went through and walk through in a film session. Half-court defenses allow you to do that, and that happens because you put the ball in the hole, and that's what the Knicks have been doing. So their half-court defense has gone to another level because they're in so many half-court defensive situations. So many more than they were even during the regular season. So it's really important that the Spurs operate at a high level offensively. Victor Wembanyama is a major differentiating factor in that regard. His offense, I agree with you, has to be totally on point. Now, there's a factor here we haven't talked about yet. We're all waiting to see. This Mitchell Robinson situation. So
yeah,
he gets surgery on his right pinky. Now, obviously, it's a shooting hand. Okay, that doesn't matter to Mitchell Robinson that it's a shooting hand. Let's be honest about that. Okay, so because he's shooting 25% or whatever, 30% from the foul line. The hack of Mitch is going to come into play probably at some point. Okay, he's not going to be able to make free throws because his hand is banged up. Even if it wasn't, he's not making them. But Can he secure rebounds the same way? You don't know how much pain he could be in. How bandaged is that hand? Can he catch the ball for a lob threat? Like, these are factors, but most importantly, if for whatever reason Mitchell Robinson is limited in pain, he gets it hit, and he can't play, that's a real problem for the Knicks, because in his 15 minutes, you're talking about, number one, he had a massive offensive rebounding game against this team in the regular season. And he's capable of that on any given night. It changes games, what this guy does on the offensive glass. It's also eating up fouls, man. And those minutes where you can get Cat a blow and you can still have size out there. Because I don't know if they'd have confidence to go with Huck Porty, if it was going to take that. Jeremy Sohan's over there. Would you go with that? The ex-Spur giving you some minutes. He won't give you much offensively, but he can guard. He's athletic. Or do you just play Anunoby at the 5?
Yeah, that one.
Against Cornette. Like that. So they've got some decisions to make if Mitchell Robinson is significantly limited to the extent that they really feel like they can't play him, or if it's slowing them down in some way. So everybody's waiting to see, because no one knows the answer to that. I think he's going to play. What's it look like, and what does that do to the Knicks rotation and the size that they have on the court at some times?
Yeah. I think the offensive rebounding part of this too, and that's what Mitchell Robinson provides, this ability to grab. I mean, he has stints where he'll check into the game for 7 minutes and grab 6 offensive rebounds, and it just completely flips the game. And I think the Spurs are vulnerable to this a little bit, especially when we talk about Wemby having to step out. Wemby allows the Spurs to play essentially 4 perimeter players because he can be inside and now you can press out defensively. But if the offensive boards become a huge factor, and by the way, it's not just Mitchell Robinson, it's Cat, it's Hart, it's Bridges who sneaks in, and OG Anunoby, they all collectively rebound. And if all of a sudden that becomes an issue, if you go a quarter where you gave up 5 or 6 offensive rebounds, you have to start, now do we sink into the paint? Guys are less pressed into their guy because they know they have to get back to the boards. It changes the geometry of the floor. And I think that will be I think there will be a game in this series that is determined by offensive rebounding or the lack thereof. Whether it's the Knicks grabbed a bunch and they win the game, or the Spurs prevented it entirely and they won the game. I think it's going to be a major, major storyline. So those are the ones I have. What else is there? What other key battlegrounds are you kind of looking at, or storylines?
Well, I think the benches are big, and I don't know that the Knicks are going to match what you're getting off the bench from the Spurs, because there's just more opportunity for those guys. Like Keldon Johnson, Dylan Harper at the top of the list. Like those two guys, the way they're empowered, they're not just kind of standing around spotting up, waiting on shots. Those guys get the ball in their hands. They're able to have a lot more freedom, more minutes, more touches, more responsibility. So yeah, the bench production, just in terms of raw numbers, is going to favor the Spurs. But so it's not about that for me for the Knicks. It's about the impact moments. You're going to need in this series significant stretches where they have a major impact. Guys like Jordan Clarkson, Landry Shamet, who's just
big.
The heater of all heaters, man, to shoot what he's doing from the 3-point line in limited minutes has been absolutely mind-blowing to me. Look, by the way, you don't give up anything with him on the defensive end of the floor. That's a luxury to have. 3-point shooter that competes like that defensively, that pressures the ball, fights over screens, and then waits around and knocks down the 2 or 3 shots that he gets on a given night. They're going to need that. And we talked about Joe Robinson already, so that's the one big. Clarkson, Shamet, Alvarado, they're like the only other guys that are really playing. Miles McBride, I guess, would be another guy. Like, do those guys, even if it's not the raw numbers that they're equaling, can they have moments, man? And sometimes, honestly, that might just be a couple of shots in a 5-minute stretch to help you stay even with the team. When you're waiting to get Brunson back in the game, you're waiting to get Cat back in the game, Anunoby, whoever it may be. So it's not the numbers, it's the impact and the moments. They're very, very important. They need to be part of the storyline the next morning. These stretches of the game where the Knicks bench, even though they're going to have less minutes, they'll have less shot attempts every night. This is going to be the case. But can they have moments that really matter, that help you cut a 10-point deficit to 4, that make you extend a 2-point deficit to 8, or maybe it's just stay even during those 8 to 10 minutes that maybe you've got 3 subs in the game? That's going to be a major factor. It's something I'm going to be really monitoring the entire series.
All right, we have to take our last break here, Legs. We have a short segment on the other side, though, where I just want to ask you about the players you're most interested in order. We'll talk about that on the other side. Let's take one last break, and we'll get there. FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easier to get closer to the action. From player props on your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your picks with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss out on your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
You know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away? Well, I've been there too, but I've got Shady Rays. They've changed the game. Sunglasses that are made for real life, seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, not stupidly expensive. I go with aviators and navigators for the most part. The wild part is, if you lose or break them even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear. On hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever, Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use the code ALLCITY, all one word, ALLCITY, for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. All right, back here, final segment, me and Tim Legler. Legs are getting ready to head over to Media Day. And I was going to ask you this. Media Day is where all the media comes together. And by the way, it's like international media. The finals do feel different. And this is one question. I know it sounds silly, especially to people that have never been around this, but you go from round 1 to round 2 to round 3. It's just a series. You change cities, you come back. There's nothing different about the flow or rhythm to it. The finals, the rhythm is completely different. They build these like sets and stages, and there's 5 times the amount of press there, and there's just more like pomp and circumstance. And I wonder if you think that will have, for the Knicks, I imagine less so. For the Spurs, though, this is sort of a test in that it just feels bigger than the previous rounds.
No, there's no question. I mean, yeah, and look, Knicks haven't been on this stage either. But they've got just guys that have been around longer in general, that have been
older guys.
Older guys that have been on, deeper playoff runs, right? So this is the Spurs seem like they've navigated it pretty well. They just won a Game 7 on the road against the defending champions. That environment had to be nuts, but it's nothing like it compares to the NBA Finals, just in terms of, like you said, things that are out of the ordinary. That's what a lot of this is going to feel like. Now, look, that ball goes up in the air tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, that's going to – then it feels kind of the same. But everything around it on the off days, the morning of, the responsibilities that you're compelled to do that maybe you could say no to during the regular season that you can't now. All of that is different. I think once that ball goes in the air, though, I think it gets back to basketball. And I think there is a very there's a maturity that this team has that really doesn't make a lot of sense considering their age and going through this for the first time. Will they be affected in any different way in the finals than they were in the last round or Game 7 on the road in Oklahoma City? Time will tell. We don't know. Let's see what happens when you get out there. There's no doubt that it's different. It's going to feel different. But I think at the end of the day, that they have a lot of trust and faith in what they've created, the way that they play on both ends, and their accountability to each other, and the belief they have in their head coach. They've got a lot of confidence in him as well, that he's going to navigate situations. And that preparation and belief help offset anxiety, nervousness, whatever it may be. And they have an awful lot of both of those things.
All right, well, let's wrap up this preview edition, this finals preview edition, by going to Kalshi Market Watch. This is the markets we're watching for this week around the NBA. And what we're doing this week is we're talking about the players that are most interesting or intriguing heading into the series. My number one guy is probably a surprise. Everybody would have a different one. You'd probably have a different one, Legs. I think it's Karl-Anthony Towns for me. I just think that this series, he will be a big inflection point, and I'm not sure which direction it is. Shoots the three well. Draws Wemby out of the paint, gets him into foul trouble. Those things can tilt this in the Knicks' favor. On Kalshi right now, he is trading at 6% chance to win Finals MVP, and I kind of feel like that's low. If the Knicks win, I think in part of it will be that he has taken Wemby out and maybe even had a huge game or two. So to me, Cat's the most interesting player in terms of just like X factor players going in.
It almost feels to me like this, as you put it earlier, the floor is lower for Victor Wembanyama than the other player. I kind of feel that way about Brunson with the Knicks. And so my point being, if their floor is higher than just about anybody you can think of in this situation, like it kind of feels like if they win either team,
right,
I feel like that guy will be Finals MVP. But I hear what you're saying. The next guy on the list is Cat, because he's just unique player. He's a big. He's going to be counted on. You got to keep him out of foul trouble. He's got to have good shooting nights from deep because the shot's going to be available to him. He's got to draw some fouls on Wemby. He has to be a rim protector at times again, because their guards attack the paint. And you got guys, Harper and Castle and these guys, Fox is in the paint. These guys are coming at you. So he's going to have a presence in there as well. So I don't think that's a bad one at all. I would have started with Brunson, because if this guy is able to go and operate in his normal self, MVP caliber player, all league caliber player against this defense on this stage, first time having done that, like that would be an incredible statement to where this guy is and like where he is in the pecking order of great players in this league. So I'm fascinated by him. Can he do this at his normal rate, and can he do it efficiently against this defense with this incredibly unique force waiting back there behind whoever is guarding him initially, and what that must look like to a smaller type of guard, and how does he figure out a way to do it anyway? I'm fascinated to see if he's up for that.
Brunson, by the way, trading at 32% on Kalshi for Finals MVP, so he's a lot higher. I mean, he basically makes up the Knicks' margin, in terms of Finals MVP. So I see that one. I thought OG Anunoby, we talked about this earlier, I think he's a huge factor. Does he eliminate one of the players? Does he dominate physically? So I think OG Anunoby is another one. And he's one of the few players with odds on the board. 3% he's trading for Finals MVP. I don't think he could be Finals MVP, but I do think he can be. We walk away from the series and just say, hey, he really impacted. He was the reason they won in terms of X factors.
I don't know, man. I think he's right there, maybe even slightly ahead in my mind of potentially pulling it off as a long shot above Cat for this reason. He's going to be the primary defender on Victor Wembanyama. So as you well know, go back to the Golden State Cleveland series back in the day. Andre Iguodala has a Finals MVP on his man.
That's a great
and he made some shots. He made some shots in that series, and a lot of it was because Steph drew two people. They reversed it to the weak side, and he had some wide open shots. But I don't remember off the top of my head what his numbers were. They were nothing crazy offensively. It was because the combination of timely shot making with what he did to limit LeBron's efficiency. So for me, OG Anunoby, because he's going to be so much spotlight on how he's guarding Wemby and what he's doing to him, and if he makes him have some rough nights and his efficiency's down, he's going to get so much credit for that. But here's the thing: on the other end, he's a far more accomplished, offensive player, and more important offensively, I should say, to the Knicks than Iguodala was to the Warriors. So he's going to have to also get you 20 on the other end. And there's a good chance he does that. So if OG Anunoby gets 20 on one end, is the primary guy guarding Wemby and does a great job on him, I actually think OG Anunoby may have more of an inside track as a long shot to win Finals MVP than Karl-Anthony Towns.
I think you might have convinced me, man. It's a really, really good take, especially the Iguodala piece. We've seen this before. The last guy I have for you is De'Aaron Fox. And this is not about Finals MVP. This is just about, does he make an impact? Because I think the size and physicality of New York could be a factor here. Maybe Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle slightly less effective in the finals than they were the conference finals. But De'Aaron Fox is the other part of this. He is the speed. And they might be needing somebody else to get into the paint and create opportunities. And I'm curious if Fox is that guy where there's so much attention to the other guys. You get physical with them, but Fox keeps getting into the paint and scoring.
Yeah, I agree, man. And he averaged 11 points a game in that OKC series. Not a lot of shots, really. And and when you talk to Mitch Johnson, he brings it up all the time, why they were able to pull this off like this year. He gives him so much credit, even though This is a guy that averaged 25 points a game, I think at least 3 times in Sacramento. He was an alpha, option 1, green light, do what you want. He comes to San Antonio, and like his willingness to understand, he doesn't need to do that every night. He picks his spots a little bit more, but he's very mature. He's got a great voice, very intelligent. His impact on these guys, but then he also has the ability still to go get you 10 points in a quarter, like at a key time, because he's that good offensively. He's that quick. The one thing I've always said repeatedly, the hardest thing to prepare for in basketball defensively and execute a game plan defensively is to counter speed, because speed takes the ball to a place you didn't expect it to be. And now it causes communication problems and breakdowns. Fox still is the quickest player in this series. And so he has the capability on any given night to give you 20 plus. He didn't need it in the OKC series. They were still able to get through. Maybe this series is a series he needs to do that a little bit more. And his quickness against a physical defense with these big physical guards that can defend you, maybe it is a major difference maker in even if it's 1 or 2 of these games, could be all the difference.
All right, let's go to our super chats because I know you got to get out of here, Legs, get over to Media Day, and we got a couple of them. And I see one guy, he's spending the money, busy today, spending the money to make his point for us, Legs. Why is the national
media?
We split
that, by the way. Is that $10 a piece for you and I?
Unfortunately not, Legs. It's all mine. You have
here we go.
Yeah, here we go, you know. Why is the national media not talking about the easy path Spurs had to the final? Only the Knicks, injured Wolves, injured OKC. They struggle to put those teams away. Why is it looking at it as if they went fire instead of being, and then the next one comes up here, I think these go together, an extremely flawed team. Instead of national media as Monday morning quarterbacking the East, Atlanta was initially looked at as the toughest first-round matchup of the lower seed. Embiid was supposed to be next. Maybe it keeps going here. Yeah, next best player. You put it up there, Atticus.
When you spend $20, you can write,
$45 here. Best player in the series. Now the Knicks haven't played anybody. It is facing their toughest challenge. How about Spurs is finally facing a healthy team? I mean, look, man, the games will sort this out. Because everybody this part is part of the talk that I think is not. It doesn't get us anywhere. I do think that, look, the Thunder, yes, they were down J-Dub. Guess what? They were down him all year, won 62 games. That was a very good team with or without J-Dub. Would they have been better with him? Absolutely. A.J. Mitchell gets hurt. Okay, it happens. The Thunder were a good team. That was a great win. We saw what the Wolves did to Denver. They're a physical team. They can defend. The Spurs dismantled them. And, the Knicks, I think they were a tough matchup for the Sixers. It wasn't like the Sixers were juggernauts. They did win their series. I'm not saying the Knicks beat nobody. We're talking about a point differential that is historic. They've done an incredible job. So I don't think this narrative to me resonates at all. The finals will tell the truth, and I think the truth is both teams are really good, regardless of their path here.
Yeah, and I think, look, I understand where people come from sometimes with these questions. They're not talking about us. When you say the media, it's other stuff
everything.
they're listening to. It's not us. It's other stuff they're listening to, and then they come to us with the question. I don't know. It's like ask a boxer sometimes. Why'd you lead with your chin there and you got knocked out in the 3rd round? I don't know. I don't know why people do what they do. Okay, I don't understand. I know this. I can only talk about what is in front of me, and I'm looking. I called the entire Eastern Conference Finals, and it was a mismatch. But when you look on paper at the talent in the starting lineup, the Cavs probably represented the 2nd best starting lineup in the Eastern Conference besides the Knicks this year.
Yeah.
Okay, this year they did. And so, I don't think Donovan Mitchell was right. And so, look, it is what it is. This is what they were left with, and they made mince meat out of the Cavaliers. They made mince meat out of the Sixers. They flipped the Atlanta series on its head when they made one small adjustment to their offense, and it turned in, and they haven't looked back since. So they have shredded what's in front of them. The Spurs path, you want to talk about it being an easy path. OKC, I don't care who's out. Man. They got the 2-time MVP, a lot of depth and an elite defense, and they're playing a Game 7 at home, and the Spurs were able to get it done. So I don't care. At no point have I said I care who they played to get here. You've never heard me say that, and rarely have you ever heard me take any approach like that in all the years I've been broadcasting. When I get to a series, I don't care. I care about this. How are they playing? And I can differentiate the two. I'm smart enough to know what I'm looking at. When a team gets to their best version of themselves, That's all that really matters. And I really believe that both of these teams have found it
going
into the finals, no matter who they played.
Yeah. All right, hit that outro music, Atticus. My camera's telling me we're done. Legs has to get over to Media Day. But I'll end it with this, Legs. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but every NBA game that's ever been played is a matchup between two frauds. Because the team that loses was a fraud. I mean, that team was fraudulent. And the team that won, all they played was frauds. Because that's who lost. So it's like the Knicks. This is what you're arguing. The Knicks, they've only beaten frauds. And, but now the Spurs are favored, and that's because the Knicks are frauds. It's like, you can't win, man. You can't win. Just enjoy the game. And we'll be doing that tomorrow. Legs is on the call. You're not going to want to miss it. Finals, I think it'll be one for the ages. Thanks for tuning in. We're back Thursday, by the way, so set your watches, mark your calendars. We will be back recapping Game 1. Hit the like button for us on the way out. Share us on social media. We'll see you Thursday.
We all silly like the mayor.